True. That is true. Yeah. All right. Hello, this is Jess with Her Mood Mentor, and today I'm meeting with one of my integrative menstrual health coaching clients and PMDD rehab students, Audra. Hi, Audra. It's great to see you.
You too.
So today we're going to dive into your PMDD story. You have been kindly willing to share to raise hope for others who are suffering from the intensity of PMDD. So let's just go way back to the beginning and tell us a little bit about the symptoms that you were experiencing and how you ultimately ended up with a PMDD diagnosis.
Yeah, so I really started having symptoms in retrospect, I realized this. When I was probably 15, 16. So it was a few years after I started menstruating, but it really started quite early. And of course there was I don't know if people knew about it. I certainly didn't know about it. And the doctors I was seeing, I got the whole list thrown at me. It was bipolar, I'm depressed, it's anxiety, it's, one person said schizophrenia. And I was like, I really don't think it's schizophrenia, but okay.
Mm.
It's just like, it never felt like right. And then I heard about it. I feel like when I was in my 20s, like I just came across it somehow, or like my mom sent me an article and was like, "See?" It was
Mm.
like, I don't know. But it really was one of my boyfriends who noticed it first, and sort of like pinpointed that it was cyclical. And that was probably around 2017. And then I got the diagnosis in 2019. And I was seeing a PCP and a therapist. And so it kind of came about through that.
Mm.
Um, and yeah, and it's still, though, it's weird. It's like, I don't know why it's like required this churning. It was like I had to kind of churn through it. And it's like, it wasn't very easy for me to separate PMDD, like this is an illness, and also like this is me. It was like
Mm.
everything was just in the same category. So anytime I'd experience symptoms, I was like, wow, I must really be an asshole. Like I must be a terrorist. Um, it was just only until very recently, which is what spurred me contacting you. I was like, holy shit, these things are separate. This is life threatening. Oh my God. So,
Mm.
yeah.
Wow. So we're talking decades of you living with these symptoms before piecing it together that it's PMDD. And of course, this wasn't added to the DSM until very recently. So there wasn't a diagnostic criteria, technically, many of those years. But what was it like living with the symptoms? I mean, it felt like who you were. So tell us a little bit more about what that kind of looked like and how that played out in your day-to-day life.
Yeah, so it's funny. I feel like so much of my life I've always sort of couched myself as just like a person that likes extremes. It was always like I'm super on and off. Like at parties, people used to make fun of me. They were like, "Oh yeah, she's the supernova, but she burns really brightly, really fast, and then completely just like done." Um, and also, I became a sex worker when I was just finishing up undergrad, and that, of course, was like, extremes playing out. Um, so it was kind of this thread in my life. Like it's actually kind of baked into in a sense it is baked into who I am. Um, this like because constantly every month was like I'd be fine and then it would go completely essentially, like Jekyll Hyde kind of stuff. So it was just this thread. It was this thread, and it was very like it was confusing to me, like personality wise. Like, how is this? And then you forget things. It's like there's this weird amnesia that happens when you're in phase. So like when you come out of it, you're just like, oh, okay, well, now I'm really tired and I don't know what happened. And I feel like I need to apologize to a lot of people.
Mm.
And it's just every month, to varying degrees. It's like I said, I still feel like I'm figuring out like me and PMDD. It's like, where are the lines, like, because it is at the end of the day, it's you emoting or it's you reacting. But yeah, it's like it becomes baked into everything that you do. Makes
Mhm.
sense.
Yeah, the duality too. I love how you're kind of painting the picture of the duality of the highs and the lows, but also that emergence from the PMDD episode or the luteal phase when you do get your period in those coming days of just like coming out of a fog back to yourself of like what, like there's fires burning around you, like what just happened?
Seriously, like the wreckage, it's like
Mhm.
you're trying to get out of the rubble, you're just kicking off dust and dirt and logs and whatever else,
Mhm.
and you're just like, oh wow, some things really happened. It's like, and then your good time is spent sort of repairing whatever you did in the bad time, and just then you get like, I don't know, 4 good days, and then it starts all over again. It's like I had to really release some of that guilt and shame that I felt of like, why haven't I done more in life? It's like, and actually you said to me, it just stuck with me always. I still think about it. It's just like, well, you were like, because you were ill. Like, that's what happened.
Mhm.
Like, oh, wow. Like, yeah, there is that. Again, there is the separation. That was like really, I don't know, that just like one thing you said kind of like, 180. Um, yeah, I'm not sure if I'm answering that question. I obviously get off track.
No, it was great, and you were. It's hard to really describe the experience of PMDD living with it. A lot of times we hear, and we're talking about it in a very fun and poetic way, which people understand who live through it. But it's really hard to grasp like the psychological impact. And people don't really talk about or understand mood disorders or even personality disorders, which PMDD isn't a personality disorder, but it's often misdiagnosed as borderline personality disorder. And so what does that really look like in behavior, and how does that really feel to live in a body that feels possessed by these emotions and by this turmoil essentially? And it's hard to describe. And so I like getting into these deeper conversations and hearing from others who's have experienced it, because they are able to kind of elucidate the I think experience a lot, but the experience in a different way, in the way that they lived it. So it's really helpful to hear from you. I know people listening to this are going to be able to take a lot from what somebody else going through what it really felt like.
Yeah, and it starts like once you start kind of unpacking all of it. And for me, it's like I'm an artist and so it's like I'm thinking about things in that visual sense. And it's like as I started like digging around on this stuff, I'm like, oh, like you mentioned being possessed. It's like think about every horror movie that involves a woman, it's like there's literally a movie called Possession. And what's the wrong thing? Exorcist, right? She's like
Mm.
around the age where she starts menstruating, and it's like this is all very tied into the culture. And
Mhm.
there's a reason why these things don't get studied, why they're not taken seriously. Because it's easier to just be like, women are bad, I guess. It's
Mhm.
like it is
Yep.
very connected to a lot of social, like cultural ideas about
Yep.
women.
Mm.
And then when you get in the weeds, you're just like, oh God, wow. Like yeah, that part really had me like shocked, just
Mm.
like sort of how everything is connected in that way. And it's so deep. And like, again, the shame you feel and like the guilt you feel. And it's just like, and then you're watching things that sort of like, address it in this way of like, oh yeah, like you're evil, you know?
Mm.
Like, shoot, go back to Roman times. Like Medusa, read about Medusa. Just go wiki that shit. Like, I'm telling you. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
Medusa is not the horrible person that people make her out to be. Like, it's
The
very
stigma, yeah, the stigma really perpetuates our suffering on so many levels, and it's really just not helpful, but it's so ingrained. I mean, even into the industrial medical complex where it's like, this is just people have literally said to myself and my clients, this is just what being a woman is like. And it's just like, whoa, like that is not an acceptable clinical setting to be told
no,
that, you know.
and that's, yeah, it's like further the point of like, oh, so I have to live. I mean, we already kind of, you know, I mean, everyone lives in a prison to a certain degree, but for women, it's like that shuts down everything, right? Oh, so this is normal. I'm normal. This is all expected. This is how, I mean, it blew my mind when I started talking to other women who were like, oh yeah, I don't have that. I don't experience that. That doesn't happen to me. And I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
I'm telling you, it is like it's like chilling. Like you really, I think people, you know, with all this stuff like misogyny and racism and whatever, people think it's these grand gestures of like hate or like people, you know, really like punching down. And it's like, it happens in the most subtle ways. And it's like I said, like there isn't research being done. Well, why is that? You'll start to see like when you start walking it back, like, oh, I see how all of this is connected to like perceptions of women and how they should be, how they should feel, and what's written off. And
Yeah, it's not even conscious. People aren't necessarily consciously doing it, but it
that's right.
creates this normalization of the suffering, and people aren't able to make the distinction, right? Because we should feel differently between different phases of the cycle, but what people are with it who are experiencing PMDD are living through is so much more severe than the kind of adage of like, oh, she's crazy around her period. It's like that minimizes the reality of what we're going through. And like you said before, this is a life or death situation for many of us. And the sad part about it, when we zoom out of all of it and do look at ourselves within the culture, this affects everyone. This isn't just affecting women or females. Like it affects our partners, it affects our children, it affects us in the workplace. It literally affects the entire society and the entire culture. So it should not be just brushed off in the ways that it has been. And I really do hope the awareness, you being here today, sharing your story, is just another kind of penny in that bucket of, hey, we need to change the way that we're talking about this because it is affecting people, everyone who comes in contact with us.
Yeah, and like you said, you know, it's not like I'm going on a tirade against any one person or one institution or whatever. It's like I don't think like it's not a malicious act. Like people do it out of patterns, right? Or like what we're taught as children, how we view certain things. It's like a very deep-seated thing. Like most of the time, I really truly believe in my heart of hearts that people are not doing things to be malicious, right?
Right.
But it's like you can't recognize what you're doing or what you're saying or how you're being perceived without those conversations.
Yeah.
You know, it's like it doesn't happen.
It's a dead end.
Yeah, and it's hard to break into. I mean, you know, we were just talking about like a lot of the conversations around PMDD. Like, you know, I've been there. I was on Reddit. I was in all the groups. You know, and it's like, understandably, a bunch of people flock there to like because they're in crisis and they're like, I don't know what to do. I'm freaking out. My life is falling apart, and it's just a deluge of suffering, which doesn't really help anything, but also I obviously deeply understand that position of not having anywhere else to go.
Yeah.
You know, it's just like, and I think one of the things working with you taught me is like, yeah, it is okay to talk about this. Like, it's okay to bring it up to people, and like people will generally understand. And there will also be people that don't understand. You know, like I lost my job because of it, and I had been upfront about it, but it just, you know, an older generation, you know, it's like, I get it.
Yeah.
I'm not, you know, it's just, I don't know. You have to like kind of work with people. You have to be patient with people, and you have to be patient with yourself too. You know, you have to not expect yourself to just be a fully functioning cog. Like, just like, you know, I touch grass, realize the world we're living in. Like, of course, it's insane.
Yeah.
And then add on top of it, you know, everything else. It's just like, yeah, of course you're suffering. Like, this isn't normal. Like, and like, not PMDD isn't normal. I mean, like, the society, the way that it is, and the way we're supposed to function. It's like,
right.
No.
Yeah, it is misaligned with how humans are meant to be living, for sure. And this is just an added complexity, but PMDD is a chance, and there's a lot of ways we can look at it and think about it. And there's no shortage of negativity when it comes to that. But when we're trying to peek through that darkness and see like what, if any, positivity is coming out of this, it is a chance to self-actualize in certain ways and to grow and to heal. And it's a lifelong thing. And healing doesn't mean you don't experience symptoms, but you meet yourself in a new way on that path, rather than kind of that, again, closed door path, or many closed door paths when it comes to PMDD. And so let's kind of get into that a little bit now with, okay, so you were living for decades with these highs and lows impacting your work, your relationships, your relationship with yourself, all of this. And what was really what was kind of the differences in our work together? And as you went through the work, tell me and tell us, you know, if anything, what changed for you in that process, because you had tried, you know, many other approaches before this.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I was fortunate enough to have like healthcare. Like I said, I had a PCP, I had a therapist I was going to see like every week. At one point, you know, it's like I actually just hired an herbalist to help me. You know, it's like, I get that people that some of that stuff is just not accessible. But there's also like numerous community things that I'm in Philadelphia, so I know there are like people that do sliding scale and that sort of thing. It's not even answering your question. Why?
Because that's important to know, that the resources are available. You have to work harder sometimes to find them, but there are resources available.
Yeah. But in terms of the course with you, I think, and what was your question again? It was like,
just what changed, as you know, in the approach that we took, and as you were going through that, what changed with your symptoms? How did that differ from the things you tried before?
yeah, so I think there was, and this is, I think I wrote this somewhere or I told you this, but it's like all the things that people had told me before that just completely, I was just, you know, it was always like, well, why don't you make a list? And in my head, I'm like, bro, I have 55 lists going at once, you know? Or like, why don't you try making a goal? And I'm like, oh my God, you know, like, have you ever tried yoga? And which I shouldn't hate on yoga. Everything they say about exercise and yoga is true. I hate that it's true, but it is true. Sorry to, it is true. But when people would say that stuff, like make a list, set a goal, habits, I was just like, what does that even mean? My entire life, I've never been a practicer. I got fired from a piano teacher as a child because this woman was like, you're wasting your money. This kid, it just is all over the place.
Mm.
Which also, by the way, I was tested for ADHD when I was a kid. Guess what? They're testing you based on research that's done on boys because they didn't do research on girls. Guess what? ADHD presents different in girls than it does boys. So it's never,
Yeah.
just like,
Yeah.
But I'd never have anyone like the way you broke things down. Like when you talk about building habits, when you talk about setting goals, it's not just like write down your goals. It's like, what are these things? How do you do that? Like, let's just go back to like the definition, y'all.
Yeah.
Like that, I've probably told this like 5 times now, but that was like so mind blowing to me. I was like, yes, this is what I need because I don't know how to do those things. I don't know what that means, and it's not rooted in anything for me.
Yeah.
But the way you structured it, it's like it all sort of like it like has like legs, you know what I'm saying? It's like it actually like feeds into the process. You understand like the weight of it, you understand the importance of it. It's like I've just never had that experience in my life. Like, you know, you can reward me, you could do whatever, but like probably won't do it, like because I just didn't know. What does that mean when you say that? How do you do that?
Yeah, and that's where we start, right? We start with those foundations, both around habits and goal setting, and because we're getting into behavior change. And I feel like that is a fundamental piece of knowledge in depth that you need to have before we start talking about behavior change. And we also start with those fundamentals of the menstrual cycle too, before we even get into, okay, how are we going to reduce and manage PMDD? Like you need to know how to have some of these life skills first. And so that really did set you up for success moving forward as we started tackling, and specifically in your case, we really focused a lot on nutrition. But before we started tackling that behavior change. So let's get into a little bit with the symptoms, how the symptoms changed and how that impacted your life, because there were many needles that were moved through this process. And we started working together in the end of March and we finished in the beginning of July. So that was the duration of the coaching, and you were working through a fair amount of PMDD rehab at that same time. So we had the educational component and then we were working together one-to-one. So talk to us a little bit about like what changed with your symptoms. Let's start there. Yeah.
Yeah, when we ranked everything, most everything except for like relationships was pretty low. And so looking at that, I'm skeptical about everything generally. So I was really like, well, this is a pretty tall order, like, I don't know, she seems really encouraging and like motivating, but I hope she knows that I'm going to suck at this, but, it was like picking something. It was actually like, I knew my like spirituality aspect and like resilience aspect was super lacking. But when talking to you, we kind of both came to the conclusion of like, why don't we do something like roundabout that's just going to like absolutely improve your well-being and see if like maybe some other things don't benefit from it just by the fact that you're changing this one thing. We focused on nutrition. Not even that I had to eat so many different things. It's not like I changed my diet. Okay. Yeah. It was like when you get up in the morning, instead of having a coffee and a donut, why don't you have some protein? That's the rule. If you want to, that's it. Whatever you want to do, fine. But have protein the first thing you get up within 30 minutes of getting out of bed. That's it. Okay. It was like this weird thing that it required me to do some preparation. It required me to go buy some like healthy things. And I don't know. Also, I was like waking up earlier because there was like something to look forward to. Like I do the overnight oats. So I was like, yes, I don't have to do any work this morning. I'm just going to get it out of the fridge, half asleep, and just like, you know.
Yeah.
And that, just doing that, like protein in the morning, like, I mean, I don't know, maybe some other people watching this are like, yeah, protein in the morning. But like, I don't know, you know,
Right.
I'm 33, I didn't figure that out. So it's like that little thing, and then doing it, just one thing repetitively and seeing like, oh, I can do this. Okay, well, like I can continue to do this. Like this is easy enough.
Yeah.
And then you just keep on. And then the whole thing about habit stacking habits or whatever. It's just like, that was super impactful for me. It was like, then once I got the sort of like motivation to keep doing something, it's like I can stack something else on, or like I can pad my schedule with this other thing that I'm already doing at that time. Like it was, yeah, like I told you before, y'all, I didn't even finish the course. Okay. I didn't even finish it. Right. I couldn't. Or it's not that I couldn't. I could, but I'm bad at time management. Okay. As you can see. So, but even that, yeah, for me, it's just like, I don't know. I know everyone says this in like testimonials when they do this, but they're like, if I can do it, you can, you know, but it's like, well, probably not, you know, but like, and like, I've never done this. Like, I've never done a testimonial video for someone and like, you know, wanted to spout, you know, whatever about it. But I'm like, yo, you're doing something that is so like needed. Like the conversation alone needed, but then like providing a structure, like it's practical shit. Like I don't want people to think it's like super woo woo. It's like I'm woo woo a little bit, but not too much. And it was like very practical stuff.
Yeah, we focus on those foundations of health. And the benefit with coaching is, right, we can really go into your life. I'm working with you for over 8 hours. So we can really find, hey, what's going to be the leverage point for you based on all of this other conversation and questionnaires and data that we collect. And so, but being able to do that and start slowly with something small, build up your self-efficacy where you're like, oh, this is actually working. I'm physically and emotionally feeling better by making this one change. And then that goes on for a month, 2 months. What else can I do? What else can I do? And by the end of it, I mean, we're collecting data through this whole time in various different metrics. And when you came to me in the beginning, you were mapping 15 to 20 days of moderate to severe symptoms. The scale goes mild, moderate, severe. Okay. So moderate to severe is on the high end of psychological, mostly symptoms that you were experiencing. And what was it that we were able to get down to from 15 to 20 days down to how many days?
Two days.
2 days of moderate to severe symptoms in one of the cycles. Yeah.
That's right. And listen, it's not even that I'm saying that. I mean, the data says it when we would mark the symptom tracker, you know, okay, that's obviously convincing because it's right there in front of you. Everyone in my family noticed. My boyfriend noticed. Like, that's the kind of change I'm talking about. And I don't even see my parents like that often. Like I talk to them on the phone and stuff, and they're like, oh, wow, like, no, yeah, you seem like different. And my boyfriend was like, holy shit, you're not coming after me, you know? Like I'm not getting the ricochet bullets, you know? Like, yeah, we like to call it whenever I'm in that time, we say, I'm back in Nam. So, you know, it's like, I don't know, also like the humor around it. Like I know with you, like I had fun, you know, like doing the sessions with you. It's like I've always used perhaps a darker humor than maybe I should, but it's like it was nice to be able to do that with someone that understood because you had gone through it. That's another thing. It's like as soon as I saw that you went through it too, like when I was looking at stuff online, I was like, oh God, she understands. Like, I think the one thing I saw that really got me was you were like, you know, I never thought I'd own a house. I never thought I'd have a job. I never thought, and I was just like, that's me. Like, never. And it's not even that I like was ho hum about it. I just accepted it as truth. This just isn't going to happen for me. So then to see these changes happen, I'm like, a job, a house, maybe, you know, like,
Yeah.
it's just,
It's making you question what's possible for you after living for a long time where nothing felt possible. Even just getting through the day can feel completely insurmountable. And you see everyone around you. We've talked about this in sessions where you see everyone around you getting their doctorate, having babies, you know, buying fancy cars, moving around to new homes that they own. And like, we're literally like crawling through the day just trying to survive. It is severe. It's a severe psychological impact. So let's talk a little bit because I want to. I know this is going long, but what this will be the last question I ask before the last question. But like, what did change for you? How did you feel differently, or how did your day go differently once we started to get some leverage on those symptoms?
I think part of like the habit building and all the stuff with that was that I started, it's like, obviously when you're trying to change something, it's not going to be consistent because you've been doing something for so long, so you're comfortable in it. I mean, one thing a therapist said to me was that, like, you know, I was doing something I didn't want to do. And like, I'm like, why does this always happen to me? And she's like, well, what do you like about it? And I was like, well, I don't like anything about it. It's terrible. She's like, well, you have to like something about it because otherwise you wouldn't keep doing it. So it's like, even though these things are horrible and we hate living through them, there is something comfortable about staying where we are. And that's just being a human being, unfortunately. So it's like, once I got that kind of good mojo going, when I would slip up, like, instead of punishing myself, being like, you're a fucking failure. Looks like you didn't do it. Looks like you suck. You know, after one day of trying.
Yeah.
It's like, I learned how to pick myself back up and be like, okay, no, we slipped up, but we can still get something done today. You know, like, even there were some days that just were a wash. And then I'd be like, well, I guess I could sweep the floor. You know, like, okay, we can sweep the floor today. You know, like, you do not have to be like shackled by your failures. It's like, those are the things that like move you to action. And if you can be like gentle with yourself, and listen, gentle with myself, never things that I say. It's very hard for me to do this. I am violent with myself. Okay. It's very hard to do. But like, you know, and you can do it in like funny ways too. Like, I figured out, I was like, I'm not going to put up signs in my apartment that are like, love yourself. It's like, I can't. I'll die if I have to look at that every day. So I found a cake, a happy birthday cake. Instead of saying happy birthday on it, it says, shut the hell up. And so I put it like next to my bed whenever I have like PMDD and I'm like starting to churn on something and I'm a waste of life or like blah, blah, blah. I'm just like, shut the hell up. See the cake. You know? It's like, I don't know. And it is a part of like your coaching too, because you said that to me all the time. You really like drilled it down. Like, please stop beating yourself up. This is exactly how it's supposed to go. You're literally carving new neural pathways in your brain. Of course it is challenging. Of course you're going to fail. If you weren't failing, that would be weird.
Yes.
You know, it's like, simple but not easy stuff. And that's like really something you don't come across anymore, you know? It's like, that is a particular kind of wisdom. It's not a fucking, diet tea. It's not Ozempic. It's not like, it's like, it has real weight to it.
Mhm. Yeah, going through this process, while we primarily worked in the nutrition core area, we also worked on those automatic negative thoughts, and your relationship with yourself started to change. And at one point, can I read a couple of the quotes that you said in our last session? So at one point you said, I have more confidence in myself, which even you saying that, we both knew what that meant for you to say that. That was a huge win for you to come out and verbalize that, And then you also said, my life hasn't physically changed, but internally I'm a different person, which is so intense. Yeah.
Which is like, I mean, and also I was a, prolific mover, like, I'm going to move and then things will be better. Guess how much that works? Not at all. Unfortunately, when you move, the one thing you absolutely have to take with you is yourself. So, for it to not be some like huge overhaul of my life and the way I live or, like whatever, it's like actually happening inside. Like, that is the biggest change. You can go to the ends of the earth if you want, but it doesn't really matter. It's like, you just gotta stand still for a minute, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. You really started accepting yourself in a new way, and that opened the doors for you to make change, because you're not getting in your own way as much of beating yourself down. You're just kind of scooching that aside and paving the way forward for some change, both in behavior and the way that you're interacting with yourself. And it was so cool to see how your partner, and to hear again how your partner responded to that, because it's the people who are closest to us that can really see and reflect those changes. And so that's so amazing that he's been able to do that for you and kind of cheer you along as you're making these changes. So we kind of went through it all. We went through what it was like for you living with those symptoms for decades, undiagnosed, misdiagnosed, kind of the changes that you were able to see through this program, and in depth the symptom reduction. But we're talking about this to raise awareness about PMDD and how it impacts our lives, our families' lives, our partners' lives, all of that. So what do you want other people who are maybe where you were back in March and before, suffering with these symptoms, feeling totally hopeless, like drowning? What would you want those people to know from someone who has been there yourself?
I think probably the biggest thing is, like, if you've been living like this for years and years and years, it's like anything, there's going to be gunk to clean off, or like barnacles, you know? And I think everything piled up for me to the point where I was just like, wow, I'm such a waste of life. I've never done anything with my life. I've never done this. And that was like, it's just caked onto the experience. And once you start like working on this stuff, is like random, result on the side was that I started looking back at my life and being like, oh my God, I did that. Like, under this duress, I have done X, Y, and Z. Like, I have actually been able to like keep up. And yes, of course, there's certain things to work on, blah, blah. There's always shit to work on, right? But it's like the ability to like clean the gunk off of the whole experience and be like, well, there's actually a really shiny, mirror or like gemstone, that I kind of forgot about or that I couldn't even appreciate because I was so down. That was like a very unexpected but very like impactful result. So I think like what I'd say is like, even if you're just feeling, I mean, I was definitely hopeless when I contacted you, and I was just like, dude, whatever, last resort, let's go, you know? Like, I wasn't expecting it to work because so many things hadn't. But it's just, you can't really know how it's going to change you until you just do it.
Mm.
And there's no like hemming and hawing about it. You just have to do it. You know, I mean, literally it's, you know, do the course. I'd be floored if you didn't get anything out of like the first part. Seriously. It's just not, this is too serious of a thing to not address. And I mean, actually my partner did say he's actually on the spectrum, so we have sort of similar problems at the end of the day. And you know, he's been working with me on this stuff, and I had him read a book and everything. And I remember I was talking to him, and I was like, well, I know that you deal with some of this stuff, and it's like just as bad for you because of what you're up against. He goes, no. He said, my experience is life complicating. This for you is life threatening. That's the difference. And that was it. I was just like, yeah, you're right. Like, this is why you have to try. You just have to try. Just try.
Mm.
A little bit. Like I said, I'm not very good at trying. I'm not very good at practicing either.
Mm. Yeah.
Like,
You don't have to be perfect.
No,
And that's something we work on a lot. Yeah, just get in there.
Okay, I'll do it.
Well, it's so inspiring to hear your journey all in one go like that, which of course is abbreviated in major ways, but to see you coming out with this like polished diamond perspective on PMDD. Now that is, for some of you watching, offensive, right? Like, how could anything positive come out of it? I mean, it could be triggering to hear someone say that, but that can be the reality for any of us. Is it easy? No. Do you have to be perfect also though? No. Can you live better with these symptoms? Can you learn to reduce these symptoms? This is just another testimony to that being possible. And it's just surprising. I know you're surprised to come out of this and to have that type of perspective.
Yeah. I mean, I even, you know, this is how bad it is. It's like whenever we went through the data of like how I've improved and this, you know, just like on paper, like this is what has improved. Nothing to argue about, really. I still had problems accepting it. I was like, I don't know how to feel.
Yeah.
I don't know how to celebrate. Like it's just like, it's going to be complicated. You're going to have to hold a lot of like, you know, emotions at once. Like it is supposed to be complicated.
Yep.
But it's also like in that weird tangle, like you're loosening up with this knot, right? And you're like kind of loosening up all the stuff in there. So then you can start seeing like, oh, this string goes here. Oh, and it's connected to that one. I see. It's like, it's not perfect.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, God damn, if it didn't improve my life, like in a huge, massive way. Seriously. I mean, I told you that. I said, you changed my life. You did change my life.
Mm.
Yeah.
Well, it's been such an honor and joy to work with you and to see you go through these processes. And I think a lot of people come into this program and they, you know, they are in desperation. Obviously, they're hiring a practitioner they found on the internet, and an alternative practitioner, an integrative practitioner on top of that, which is still on the fringe, despite all of the science backing it. But it's a hard choice to make, right? And I have a private practice, so it's not going to be covered by your insurance. So you're taking a lot of risks by working with me. but you were willing to trust me through the process. And I'm so grateful for that. And it's just been so incredible to see you come out with a positive take on PMDD, and to hear that your life has been changed by our work together. It just makes me want to cry.
Really. It's like, I think I said every time I met with you, I was like, you're a wizard. Thank you. Like
I promise I'm not, I promise. But I've done it before, and the foundations of health, like, we have to address those, and it's amazing what can come from just doing that with support, right? Because these things aren't easy. But to work with someone who has been through it themselves and has backslid themselves, and still lives with this daily and navigates it daily, like, it offers a different perspective and a different approach. And I also build out specific resources for us.
I mean, it's so thorough. I think that's what really impressed me too, is like, this isn't just like, half-ass pulled together, like, it's like you got your shit together.
I had to,
like a professional. Professional.
Yeah. No, I had to. I mean, I had to do this for myself. Selfishly, I built this for me. Like, I needed a way out. I was going to die. I was wrecking my life. Like, I could not continue. So I had to do something for myself, and that you can't half-ass things for yourself. A little bit you can, but like, at a certain point, you got to level up. And slowly I crawled my way to do that. And I'm continuing to do that. But yes, I could talk to you forever, Audra. It's so fun.
Well, I could too. Even if you like went off the screen, I'd just be like,
well, thank you so much for sharing. I know this is really going to help people out there who are suffering with these symptoms, and just hopefully give them a little hope of what's possible, even if there's not a cure for PMDD or severe premenstrual symptoms. We absolutely can reduce them. In your case, 15 days to 2. And you can live better with the symptoms as well. And it can just improve the quality of your life overall. So thank you for proving that to be true.
My pleasure. My pleasure.